If you want to increase YouTube revenue, getting more views is usually the worst place to start. And that sounds a bit backwards, but it's true. Just look at these two YouTube channels. Similar views, similar quality, but one of them makes real money. It's a classic mistake that almost every YouTube business makes at some point. The problem is focusing on the wrong thing, because the assumption is views, consistency, giving away value and optimizing every little thing is what's most important. Now all of those things can be really useful, but they're going in the wrong direction altogether if you want to increase your revenue. And that's not your fault, because YouTube optimizes for entertainment. But to resolve the revenue problem, we need to focus on 5 strategy bottlenecks that need resolving before anything else can actually happen. Fix it and revenue scales incredibly fast and also reliably. Fail to fix it and the only thing that scales is frustration. Now in this video I'll include a real world example to explain as we go, because if you focus on the right things, the rest just becomes naturally easy. So the first and biggest bottleneck is the channel itself, because you can't fix a revenue problem when the channel is focused on the wrong thing. Now most channels are built for attention and reach, because that's what you'll learn from a lot of the gurus online. And also it's because YouTube rewards entertainment because they're in the business of selling adverts. This is where most people go wrong if they have a business, because they build a popular channel and then try to bolt that business onto it afterwards. The result is a messy, misaligned channel which quite frankly kills trust in your prospective buyers. Plus it's a huge waste of your time. So let me show you a good example of the opposite. Here's Sam Ovens' channel during his consulting.com era, before he went on to create School and partner with Alex Hormozi. Now he didn't build a big channel, he built a highly targeted one for high value consultants only. And that was the genius move, as you'll see in just a moment. Now, he talked to them in a way that they liked. If you look at the channel, you can see quite clearly from the thumbnails and titles, he was actually optimizing for the perfect viewer. He talked about their problems only, and he actively excluded outsiders. He didn't deviate. Because if the channel was wrong, everything downstream is then compromised, as we'll find out in the next bottlenecks, going on to bottleneck number 2. The second bottleneck is the content itself. Now this one is more subtle, but it's extremely important because the content does 2 jobs. First of all, it attracts the right people, and then second of all, it moves them in the right direction. A lot of the time you'll find if people start to get this right, they'll only get one of those components right. But the content trains the algorithm and tells YouTube exactly what you want, so they give you more of that. And that's really important because we don't want to target the wrong people. But the real mistake here is if you actually optimize for more clicks, because you bring in the wrong audience, which then don't convert and go in the right direction for you. Now, the most important thing to remember here is that clicks don't equal intent, and intent is what drives revenue. Again, if we look at Sam as our example, this content was designed deliberately. Every video spoke to a specific problem that those consultants that he wanted to work with were already feeling and facing on a daily basis. A lot of the time, if you look at those titles and thumbnails there and the first couple of minutes of each video, he's tapping straight into repeat problems that really frustrated the hell out of them. But it didn't stop there, because the content then pointed them somewhere else. Not in a salesy way, not in a pushy way, just in a clear and effective manner, letting them know that he had what they needed. Each video basically said, here's the problem, here's why it matters, here's what fixing it actually looks like, I've already experienced that, and here's where you can get some extra help. By the way, if you want help scaling your YouTube business, then there's a link in the description down below. Do you see what I did there? Now my point here is simple. If your content attracts the right people, but doesn't guide them to the solution, then you won't easily increase your revenue effectively further down the line, because everything we're doing here is setting ourselves up for later so we can have a real home run win. The third bottleneck is the offer, and this is where a lot of people stall, even with the right channel, and particularly those people who focus solely on YouTube and not just their business on the back end to that, or also the bridge between those different components. The next step has to feel obvious. It's why it has to be designed in advance at a top level, seeing the whole thing. A lot of creators rely on hope. They think if I get enough views, then surely these viewers will start to buy. And if they like me enough, then they're more likely to buy. But scaling a leaky bucket isn't effective, and liking you isn't exactly a strategy. Your monetized offer should at least feel like a natural continuation of your content. Again, Sam did this well. There was no confusion. There was one offer, one expectation, and it was clearly outlined repeatedly over and over again. He was positioned as the absolute specialist for that particular problem. Now, if you watched the content, you already knew what the natural next step would be, and you also knew what flavor you're likely to get on that channel. It wasn't forced, it wasn't rushed, it was just logical. So the lesson here is, if the offer is wrong, revenue won't scale later on. Worst case, refunds and unhappy customers will scale when you then eventually start to get more and more views and exposure. And trust me, that is something you really don't want. So let's move on to the fourth bottleneck, which is the product bottleneck. Now, this bottleneck is one of the most uncomfortable for most people because it's the product itself. Now, most of you will already have a channel and you'll likely already have a product, so you won't want to change that. And you might think to yourself, well, people are buying what I've got. But buying doesn't mean it's best. And if you really want to scale and make serious money, it needs to be the best. Also, just as a side note, if you look at some of the bigger channels that have made the most money over a longer period of time, they've consistently reinvented themselves, created new products, or changed their existing products to fit their audience, not the other way around. Your product must resolve all three of the previous stages, not just deliver some information or add some value. If the product misses, it means that you might convert, but you're then looking at refunds, bad reviews, poor results, no word of mouth, and quite frankly, a bad reputation. And also, the next stage really fails. Again, Sam got this right. His product matched his promise, and he continually improved it, and customers felt satisfied and guided throughout time. This is crucial because no amount of traffic fixes a bad product. And if that's the issue, you can't scale your output later on. This whole process is about increasing revenue. So the final bottleneck has to be leverage. And this is where most people stop. Not because they can't go further, but because they never designed for it earlier on. Now, at this stage, the bottleneck is no longer YouTube. It's the system behind it. Real leverage comes from repetition, repeat improvement, repeat views, repeat sales, ideally at high margins. Yes, high ticket products is just another form of leverage, but that only really works if you make sure that you're measuring everything you do, because what gets measured gets done and improved. So at stage 5, we need to analyze the whole system and all of the bottlenecks from the top level, implement changes, measure those changes, and then repeat. And again, Sam did this relentlessly. He didn't guess, he engineered. And here's the key reality. If any one of the previous stages is broken, more views just won't help. Fix the structure first, then views multiply revenue, and you can spend more money on creating more views. Massive revenue is all about efficiency and speed, which is why you need to watch this next video here now. It will show you 5 AI systems designed to blow up your channel incredibly fast.